was in the truck after she talked.
Okay, I don't. Good. Well, I want to tell you first that I am so proud to be here today. I'm just so proud to be a Sexton. Let's have a good round to be a Sexton. And I want to tell you about my grandma. That's who we're celebrating today. Susie Guy Sexton. She married Stan Sexton. He had a brother named Bo Sexton. Now, you folks listen good, because I'm going to tell you a truthful love story. Many years ago, in the town of Cherokee was a huge tribe of Indians called the Cherokee Indians. And when the British come here, they decided they wanted this beautiful country we live in. And so they took all the Indians out of Cherokee and marched them on the Trail of Tears. Now, I know you read about that in your history books, but what you don't know is when they took them on the Trail of Tears, there was a beautiful Indian maiden who did not want to go with the rest of the Indians. So she left the tribe exactly at that time as a runaway. She ran away to a little town called Etowah, which is in Henderson County. And there was a tavern that a man ran there, a white man. And he would not take any money except gold coins. And he hid this beautiful little maiden and told her she could live at his tavern if she would work, but she was never to tell anybody that she was a runaway, because if she did, they would punish him and her. Well, as the story goes, and mind you, this is a true story, she stayed at the tavern, and when she became a lovely lady, he fell in love with her, and they had 2 children. One was named Stanford Sexton. The other one was Bo Sexton. They grew up in the little tavern, but when they got a little older, the people used to come from South Carolina up and stop at the tavern and stay overnight or eat food. Well, she had met a lot of them. She kept gold coins. One night she closed the tavern to lock up while he put the boys to bed. And while that was happening, some traveler that was coming through came in and robbed her and shot her right between the eyes. And it killed her right there. And he came running out, and he was so distracted, and he had no idea what had happened, but he was not allowed to bury this beautiful woman in the white cemetery because she was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian. He made a stone, and I have seen the stone, and it is right out in Etowah, right at the golf course. But back then, it was just an old, ancient graveyard where the slaves were buried. Half of them didn't even have markers. But Stan Sexton told my daddy that that stone was up on that mountain, and that Stan loved her so much that he made her a heart with her Indian name on it, and it is right up there at that grave today. Okay, I want to tell you the story how Stan Sexton affects each of you. The boy, Stan Sexton, when he was 21 years old, and this is in the records, the genealogy records. When he was 21 years old, he went to Hendersonville, which is not far from Etowah, and he met a beautiful white girl named Susan Geis. He fell in love with her. She came from a white family that lived out in Dana section. And he married her, and she was just a young woman, very beautiful, they said. She was very petite, and he called her Sudie. And so Stan Sexton married her in, just a minute, I have to check that date to be sure I'm right. I have it somewhere in my treasures. Well, anyway, he was 21, she was a young woman, and they had 5 children. They had John Sexton was the oldest. Lee Sexton was the second boy. Then there was Edith, the girl. Then there was another girl, and her name was Bonnie. And my daddy was James, and he was the baby. Then Grandma and Stan got a divorce, and Stan Sexton had another beautiful child, and his name was Fred. They had the same father, but not the same mother. But she died, and he brought that beautiful baby to Grandma Sudie Sexton, his former wife, and asked her to nurse him and to raise him as a brother to the rest of the children, because he was going to South Carolina to get a job on the Bailey farm. So he left this little baby, Fred, and James grew up together just like that. So you know they grew up as brothers and sisters. That is the only record of Stan Sexton having any children in Henderson County. So he went down into South Carolina, and what a man Stan Sexton was. He had another family down there, and he had several children, and do you know that he died in 4 years after he left Grandma Sudie? And Fred and James went to South Carolina to get him because the banks had gone broke. Stan Sexton owned half of the property in Henderson County. He was holding the mortgage for all of these people that had bought homes. And when the bank was busted, Stan Sexton lost his land because he couldn't take care of all the mortgages. Okay, Stan Sexton went right straight down to South Carolina, and he met Martha. Martha was just the style lady that he liked. They said she laughed, she was happy with everybody, and so he had a total another family. He had Charlie, he had Jay, he had Ari, he had Aunt Jessie, and he had, notice who was the other one? Ed. Jesse was the baby. Uncle Ed. Oh, I knew Uncle Ed. He used to come to my house. And he worked for some Jews on 7th Avenue. He wore floor-shine shoes. He had the best cigar, Panama cigar you could smoke. He may not have had a nickel in his pocket, but he was the last of the big spenders. Ed Sexton. And he went met a beautiful girl from Germany. And I said, Uncle Ed, that's a beautiful lady you married. And she's from Germany? How in the world did you ever get to marry her? He said, I had to go to Germany to get her because I knew if I married anybody in this county, it'd be a cousin of mine. That's the truth. Uncle Ed used to come up here and go to street dances. And we'd all dance with him. He'd go to all the foods and eat everything. And when he lost his driver's license in South Carolina, his children would call and say, by the way, is Daddy up in North Carolina? And I'd say, oh yeah, he's out here. He's in swimming up at the pool with all the lovely ladies. He says, well, he don't have driver's license, and he's driving that Cadillac up there, and he don't tell us where he's going. But that was our Uncle Ed. And you remember Aunt Jessie. Don't you remember Aunt Jessie? Oh, what a joy she was. She sat right there at that table, and we got her some white lightning to take home on her last trip. She never was able to come back. She just went from better to worse. And some of her family's here. Oh, Uncle Jay was the chief of a fire department. It runs in the Sexton family. There's a fire chief over there, and one that set a lot of fires in Valley Hill right there. One time they give Buddy McCullough the job of getting the uniforms for the fire department. They were all volunteers. Buddy got them every one, a complete outfit, boots, hat, coats, all, you name it. And honey, they had the loudest siren that could go in the county. It didn't make no difference if you started to light a cigarette and there's a little bit of smoke. That fire department was right there. Did you know that they got there one time, the finest Fleetwood Hotel in Hendersonville, about 10 stories high, was burning, but they hadn't finished it because of the Depression. Buddy gave that loud signal. Sue woke him up. And they all come in full dress to the fire, and nobody thought to bring the fire truck. Oh, well, I can tell you a lot about the Sexton, but I really want to tell you about my grandma Sexton. Oh, gosh, Sue. Has somebody calling time on me? If you want me to go on and tell you some more, I can. Thank you. Oh, I want to tell you about my Grandma Sudie. Daddy being the baby, you know, and Fred. We always got to go to Grandma's house on her birthday, which was around the 10th of the month. And boy, you talk about the Sexton. They eat plenty, and still do. It is one of our best habits. And we love music. We love to dance. Why, I can remember when Marie, that's Aunt Eve's girl, and Buck, that's Aunt Bonnie's girl, and Helen, and Dude, and all of them would go off on hay rides, and Marie wouldn't let her sister ride in the wagon by this certain boy. I think she finally married him. His name was Virgil. And then Woozy, little Woozy, was Dorothy's name. She married a preacher. Now that was something. He preached the first sermon at a little church up in the mountains. And I want you to know that when he preached his first sermon up there, I heard it. And Woozy come running in the church with all them little snotty-nosed young'uns of her, and sat on the front row to hear his first sermon. And I want you to know, he had been to a seminary or somewhere and learned big words and everything. And they told him, says, talk about at your first sermon about a mother. Everybody's got a mother, and you'll get their attention. So Dude stood up there, and he was voted in as a deacon. And he sat there too, and we was listening to Willard's sermon. Now you remember Willard, he had every blessing we ever had at the at our meeting.